We'll begin with, are there any additions to the agenda?
Yes, Chairman, members of the board, there are two additions to the agenda for you to consider, adding them by two separate votes. And then a note that item 6A, the first item on the regular agenda, the Public Health Department would like to push their mobile health unit presentation and tour. So that's just a note.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of letters, support letters that came to the attention of the county after the agenda was posted, and the request is that they need to be sent, given the state's business. One of them is to Governor Newsom, and it relates to support of California hospitals, and a relief package. If there is a motion to add that based on Government Code Section 54954.2B2, then
Right.
this would be the moment.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made in second. Any input from the public? Any comment from the public? Anyone online? Okay, a roll call.
Supervisor Portress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Chairman Rogers?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Thank you, Chair. The second is to the California Department of Aging in Sacramento, and it relates to an item related to local aging and disability action planning grant program. And the request is to add that. There will be copies for members of the public to obtain here with the clerk of the board if this is added and anyone wants to see those. Thank you.
Your motion.
So moved.
Okay, motion is made.
Second.
Okay, motion made second that we find a necessity rose after posting the agenda. Comment from the public?
And online?
None? Roll call.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Portress?
Yes.
Chairman Rogers?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Okay, we'll take up those two items later on under regular agenda. Any others? Any other additions?
No, Chair.
Okay. Let's read the closed session into the record.
Yes, there's three items for your closed session, Chair and members of the board. The first is conference with your labor negotiators. Your designated representatives are Director Noriega, Joel Bogay, Susan Carter. The employee organization is all units, and there's also unrepresented employee, all classifications, excluding elected officials under Government Code Section 54957.6. There's an existing litigation matter under Government Code 54956.9 subsection D1. This has to do with the opioid litigation, County of Madera versus Amerisource Bergen. And that's a federal Eastern District, California case, 117 MD 2801 with the entire case name on the agenda. And the last is under Government Code 54957. Your Sheriff Tyson Pogue has a consultation with you related to threat to public services or facility in consideration of a tactical response plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comment from the public on these items? Anyone online? If not, we will retire to closed session. From closed session, county council, anything to report out of closed session?
Chairman, there is a reportable action from your closed session. On a motion by Supervisor Gonzalez, seconded by Supervisor McCauley, a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 absent. The Board of Supervisors approved 5 new opioid litigation settlements with the following 5 defendants. And this relates to item 2B, the Amerisource Bergen Drug Corporation existing litigation matter. And that's with CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Teva, and Allergan. And the board also authorized county council to sign the related settlement agreements, one being the state subdivision agreement and the participation agreement. The other clarification, not a reporting out, is that the board consulted with Assistant Sheriff McMecken, Sheriff Tyson Pogue being away on sheriff duties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there any, anyone that the board would like to recognize, open and close in memory of today? We don't have anybody. Everybody's living longer, and that's good. Then today let's recognize our first responders and thank them for their great and awesome service, especially, in times like this, you realize how much they really do accomplish and help people, and we appreciate that. So I'd like for us to give a round of applause to all of our first responders in this community. Look back at our fire chief back there, and I think to myself, takes a special kind of person to want to run into a burning building and save somebody or fight off a fire that comes close to your community, to save those, to work for those who can't do for themselves. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. So what a great honor to recognize those people. Let's move to having our Mike Souza, Harvest Community Church. He's going to deliver the invocation, and I'll ask Angie if she'll lead us in the flag salute when following that.
Let's pray. Life-giving Spirit, we pray for our Board of Supervisors as they meet here today, intent on doing good work. Enable them to represent fairly and well those who have given them this task. Lord, we also remember our first responders and lift them up before you at this season. They have experienced so much demand upon them with these atmospheric rivers flowing through the state of California, and rivers rising, lake levels rising, the drought being relieved. We're so grateful for that. But it also puts people at risk, and we're grateful for those first responders who put their lives on the line to save people and property and animal life and protect your creation. We thank you for them. May the efforts of this Board of Supervisors be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom, and woven together with fairness, kindness, and compassion. May they seek to serve with respect for all. May their personal faiths give them strength to act honestly and well in all matters before them. We thank you for your presence here with us and the care you show for your creation. Amen.
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. I think I failed to mention last week that one of our couples in our community was celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary. And I thought maybe Rob mentioned that, I don't know. But John and Lois Yak Legion celebrating their 70th anniversary. And two very viable people in our community. I just really appreciate them. They've been a big influence in my life. John's been a somewhat of a mentor to me personally. And I can remember some of my first political networking was done with him. He and I walked into Pete Wilson's office and talked with the governor at that time. And Pete knew him very well. And in fact, as we walked through the halls of the legislature, different people would pop out and say, "Hey, hi, John." And so he was very well acquainted with those people and very instrumental in establishing a number of important institutions in our own community. Institutions such as Hume Lake. He was involved with Hume Lake. He was involved with the Far East Broadcasting System, was a radio announcer during that time, and has been involved with many churches and mission efforts internationally. So him and Lois both very, very viable, very great people. And you want to say anything about it?
I would just say ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah, great people, very humble.
Yes, they are. Yeah, very
Yes.
good. And John's one heck of a bass singer too.
Oh, and what instrument does he play? He plays the,
Just sing.
bomba-
Oh, that's
sing.
right. He does play an instrument.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of that is, but anyway, thank you for letting us indulge on that. Our theme this year is Climb On, referring to the specifically the act of Caldwell and Jorgensen climbing the Dawn Wall in Yosemite on El Capitan. And in taking in some thoughts about that, it's a team effort to get up a wall like that when you're climbing. And as you're climbing, sometimes you're aiding your partner to get toward the goal. You're in respect pulling them up to where you're at. When your partner's below you and you're on belay, you're pulling them up. And as we do our climb in life and in business and whatever it is, especially in public service, our goal is to lift someone else up. And those that we manage, as a manager, if you're not working toward lifting those that are under your care up, you're not really being a good manager. The idea is to help people reach a goal. And we all need to be doing that with one another. As parents, we seek to lift our children up and our spouse. And wouldn't it be a great thing if those that you're around, their greatest goal in life was to lift others up? That's a good thought. So let's keep that in mind as we go through our week. Let's go to public comment.
Public comment, the first 15 minutes of each regular session is set aside for members of the public to address the board on any matter under the jurisdiction of the board, but not appearing on the agenda. The board will not take any action on any items presented under public comment. Speakers are, limited to 3 minutes. Anyone addressing the board is asked to print their name clearly on the speaker sheet at the podium and state their name and county of the residence for the record.
Come forward, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. In keeping with what you had opened up with, I'm going to pursue what's happened to myself and the people on my road. My name's Tony Ward. I live at 44343 Peterson Creek Road in Ahwahnee. It's a 1.5 mile dirt road, named road, which doesn't get much service at all. And with these rains, we've had real problems. Matter of fact, the first night the lights went out, my wife of 67 years fell and had a pelvic fracture. Many people on our road are seniors. And so last Tuesday, as I was coming back from the grocery store, and what I call my tank, which is a SUV, 4-wheel drive, could barely make it in because of the neglect of one of the homeowners at the beginning of the road. It was a mud bog. And I knew for a fact that Sierra Ambulance couldn't get in there for myself, my wife, as I say, of 67 years, and the rest of the people on the road who have medical problems because they have only one 4-wheel drive ambulance. There's no way they could get in. So taking a suggestion, my wife says, Sheriff said, if you ever have a problem, call him. And we had just seen him on TV and he was doing a good job of what was happening up in Bass Lake, what have you. So I took your advice and I called him. He gave me a card with his number on it. I called him. And he said, okay. He says, call a dispatcher. I'll do what I can do. I talked to the dispatcher, very professional. Good people. Anyway, sheriff called back and said he had talked to Matt Traber and they would try to do what they could. I got another call back from a gentleman at my age, don't remember names too well, but I think it was Justin from Public Works, and said that he couldn't do anything at the moment, but in the morning he would try. Well, in the morning I got up, he made a road out. When I got back from Kaiser, the road was fixed. The people could get out. So I'm here today to say, as you've seen me here before, challenging you on many action items. I'm here to say humbly, thank you. Sheriff Tyson, thank you. Your neighbors say thank you, except the one that caused the problem. He's still, he's a problem. So thank you. We appreciate it. And you opened up right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Hey, Tony, did they put a street sign on there yet? Do you have your Peterson Creek road sign yet?
My wife has been after me for 15 years to get a street sign. And we've had problems when there's fires and so forth, but I didn't want to bring that up.
Well, I know.
Because
thanks for being here,
very
Tony.
thankful what happened Tuesday.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much for coming and sharing that with us. Appreciate that. Good news. Come ahead, sir.
Good morning, supervisors.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Supervisor Rogers, for your statements about helping our community lift itself up, to bring up the people who are less fortunate than we. And that's what I'm here today to ask you. My name is Chris Edstrom. I am a resident of Madeira, and I am also a IHSS in-home support services provider. I take care of my son, Anthony, for 38 years now. He's autistic. A whole bunch of other things going on with that as well. During the pandemic, it was apparent that in-home care and the providers providing the care were essential to keeping people safe and healthy in their homes, away from the possibility of being killed by a virus that at that time, we had no idea how dangerous. There was a lot of confusion, but we were there. Providers continued to do their job, and we were designated essential personnel. And unfortunately, the county does not believe so. It is insulting to hear that the county values the IHSS program and knows its importance, and then offers us a nickel in our bargain, which we're almost embarrassed to even tell our members that that's what the county's offering. I suspect that you all don't know that. Maybe you're not involved in that part of the process, but a nickel is something that's far short of essential worker pay, above and beyond minimum wage. Currently, we are 50 cents over minimum wage. I'm not exactly proud to say that out loud, but it is better than minimum wage. A nickel on top of that, it's not reflective of the work that the providers in this county do to make sure the most vulnerable people in our community are taken care of. All we're asking from the county is to show us the respect that we deserve, that shows the value of the work that we do, and giving us a livable wage increase that matches that. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your comments. Next person. Hello, Connie.
My army. Hi. Good morning. Connie Moreno Praza, Director of Behavioral Health Services. Chairman Rogers, good morning, members of the board.
Good
I'm here
morning.
to take a little pause to take a moment to recognize our very own Julie Morgan, Assistant Director of Behavioral Health. And we want to present her with a certificate, and also we got her some flowers to just thank her for her 19 plus years of dedication and commitment to serving persons with behavioral health conditions. So Julie, thank you so much. She'll be retiring at the end of this month.
How nice.
Yes, they are very nice. I work with a great group of people, and it's been an honor to be able to serve the community for the last 19 plus years. I've had lots of opportunities to work with our community partners, our county providers,
as well as the staff internally. I've had great supervisors and managers, and had the pleasure of being able to watch a lot of the staff go back to school, further their own careers. And so it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carry on.
Mr. Chair, can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
So I just want to thank Julie for all her years of service. It's been a pleasure working with you. And every time I have a question, I know I can go to you or Connie, and your staff is just wonderful. And we're losing a great person, but I want to wish you the best in your retirement and congratulations. Thank you for everything.
Thank you very much.
She's not going, she's not leaving Madera.
I'm local, I'll be here.
There you go.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for doing that. Very kind. Right. Any comment online?
None online.
Okay, we'll move to consent calendar then. Any items from the consent calendar that any supervisor would like to have removed for discussion?
Yes, Chair, I just have a couple questions on CE, H, and L.
C, E, H, and L. Go ahead with the first one, the behavioral health.
Yeah, so Connie, I'm just curious. Take your time.
Yes, sir.
And I think the public may be interested to know on the crisis care mobile units. I know that's something we've been working on for a long time. There's still a lot of work to be done, but the county's vision there is that to be able to go out, times like we've experienced over the last 3 weeks and get out into the community and provide that direct service to individuals. Is that the idea
Yes.
there?
Yes, so behavioral health has been doing mobile crisis services, mostly was focusing on Madera region. But with this crisis care mobile unit through the state, the CalAIM innovation, we funded to be countywide. We launched this last year in August. We have been going out. We have been helping people during these tough times with the weather conditions. We go out to Oakers pretty regularly area, Chowchilla, definitely Madera. So yes, and the goal is we are going to sustain it. This is not going to end when the grant goes away.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Thanks, Connie.
Well,
Thank you so much.
you're very welcome.
And item E,
Item E, in regards to, I guess, the center, which is, I guess, designed through CSAC to kind of highlight counties that have public lands on them. I was just kind of curious as to what the next steps on that look like. Is CSAC going to be engaging directly with counties on this effort, or working with visitors bureaus, or what's going on there?
So this is actually, thank you, Chairman Jay Varney, County CAO. This is actually a program that is under the purview of NACO. They've reached out to their state association. So ours is CSAC. And this is basically to establish more of I'll call it a thinking center versus a brick and mortar center to deal with the issues that public lands counties face in regards to lost revenues through lost property tax and how we recover them through, I think it's tiers 1, 2, and 3. And ultimately, I think it will be more of we reach out to them versus they reach out to us, just because of the magnitude of what they're taking on and because no one has done this before. But my understanding is that it's a NACO enterprise.
Okay.
The ask has come through CSAC. They've asked for this money that came down through the local assistance and tribal consistency funds to, in our state, every county that is a public lands county, to help fund this center. And it is a regular battle. Not so much lately, but I know a few years ago it was a battle to keep the feds forwarding the money that they need to forward to keep those counties whole. When you get a county like Inyo that I think is somewhere maybe beyond 90% federal land, it's very important for them. It's very important for us, especially District 5.
Okay. Thank you, Jay.
thank you.
And I'm not sure if Sarah is here to answer a question on public health, but I do see, oh, there you are, Sarah. Thank you. In regards to the MOU with Madera Unified School, I know we kind of talked about this with the mobile health units, I think last week, but I would imagine in the future, we'll be looking to expand upon those partnerships with other school districts and other organizations throughout the county.
Yes, we are actively exploring options with all the school districts in Madera County. There is another partnership that does provide dental sealants and things like that, and we're not wanting to duplicate services. And so we're doing that due diligence. This is the first MOU of what you will see others coming your way.
Awesome.
That would be Camarina, right? Camarina
No,
does
it's
that?
called Big Smiles Partnership.
Big Smiles, I've heard of that, yeah. I know Camarina did some dental assessment at one. Yeah, and especially I had a discussion with them about Chowchilla Elementary.
Yes, Chowchilla also works with Big Smiles. Camarina Health is our partner with the oral health program, as we do not have dentists, but instead partner, provide sealants assessments, and then refer and get people connected with Denti-Cal.
Good. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then the last question is in regards to item L, the Pines track. Bill, I see you're up here, and I just had a quick question. I think we've been planning a project out there in the Pines track for quite some time with the revenue created through this assessment. I was just curious if you might be able to give us an update on where we are with that project.
Yeah, good morning Supervisor. Phil Toller with your Public Works Department. So we have an overlay project for a couple miles of roads within the Pines track. We were hoping to try to complete that project last season, but because of the supply chain issue with the man lids and stuff that we needed to acquire for Bass Lake Water Company, that got pushed off. And I think we anticipated, we did go out to bid again. We have a contractor, and I think we anticipate going to construction next month.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Hopefully we can get it done before summertime.
Absolutely.
Fingers
Absolutely.
crossed, right?
There was a little bit of impact with the storm damage, but
Just a little bit?
yeah, yeah. As that's progressing, we're getting final invoices coming in, but the district has done a pretty good job in saving up some funds, so we don't anticipate that being a problem.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Any more questions regarding the consent calendar from the board? If not, any comment from the public on this item? Anyone online? Okay,
Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Okay, great. I have a question regarding consent item 5D. Anytime there's a special assessment, I want to find out more about it. And in this item, it looks as though this is putting teeth to some code of enforcement. But I'm wondering, have the people who have been listed as getting this special assessment been notified of this agenda item? I spoke with one of them that I happen to know, and I know that he was not notified. And he was very surprised because he has been working with the county and thought that he had already dealt with this. And so I am concerned that the board would perhaps make a sweeping approval of this without hearing from those that are listed. Is there some sort of public notification that's necessary, like a public hearing on this item?
Okay, thank you for your comment. As a courtesy, if the staff wishes to respond, we can do that. Just to let the public know, we're not in the business of doing research on these things for the public. So if you have questions on these items, you need to call on them, talk to the appropriate staff. We'll refer you to the appropriate staff. We don't typically take meeting time to address every question, but as a courtesy this time, I'm going to direct the question to staff if they'd like to answer it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jamie Bax with Community and Economic Development. Yes, the property owners are absolutely notified. They are also sent citations.
Were they notified it was going to be on the agenda today?
Yes, all property owners are notified.
Okay, thank you.
It would be my comment that an item like this should not simply be on the consent agenda, so that there is opportunity for board members to investigate further rather than to make a sweeping motion, especially in relation to special assessments.
Anyone on that assessment has the opportunity to make a comment. If the board had any questions, they would have asked it. We have the opportunity to pull those items separately. So thank you for your comment. Any other comments online? Okay, we'll close the public comment portion, bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve.
I'll second.
Second, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Poitras.
Yes.
Supervisor Wamha,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Okay. 6A has been taken off the agenda for now. 6B.
6B, discussion and consideration to approve the request of a 5-year fee waiver by the Bass Lake Chamber to waive the Bass Lake Pollution Control boat registration fees as listed on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jamie Bax again, Community and Economic Development. Yes, this is a request for a fee waiver for the boat entry onto the lake. We did reach out to the sheriff's office for their concurrence. They were okay with this proposal. This does include a 5-year proposal moving forward over the next 5 years for a request. So we wouldn't have to come back every year. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions? None from the board. Any comment from the public? I will bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Wamha,
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
and Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Thank you.
6C.
6C, broadband services, discussion and consideration of entering into an agreement with CalNet, Inc., a Delaware corporation, in the amount of $1,274,575 for the installation of broadband equipment as listed on the agenda.
Okay.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board, Anthony Loza, County Administration, General Services. And the item that we have before your board this morning is consideration to enter into an agreement with cal.net for the installation of broadband equipment to provide broadband services in 5 communities identified as disadvantaged in the areas of Western Madera County, and approval of an RUR to transfer funds your board allocated for broadband expansion. So in June of 2021, your board adopted the allocation of ARPA funding, which included funds to support economic stabilization of low-income households and businesses in the unincorporated areas of Madera County. In January of 2022, your board provided direction to seek community input for the use of the funds allocated to Project 20-009, earmarked for investment in disadvantaged communities in order to determine the most critical infrastructure needs of those communities. So between May and July of 2022, staff conducted community meetings for input on priority projects in the communities of Lavina, Fairmead, Chuck Chance, Eastern Arcola, and Ripperdan, and broadband access was identified as a priority in those areas. So in August 2022, staff began discussions with cal.net to leverage county ARPA funds with Connect America Fund Phase 2 funds awarded to cal.net to effectuate the deployment of broadband internet services to the 5 unserved and underserved communities. And so just to give you a bit of a background, additional background, cal.net was actually selected with a sole source justification. And so this was due to their CAF2 federal award that they had received for 96 census blocks here in Madera County. So basically, for us, that demonstrates CalNet's investment and commitment to our local communities, which aligned us to leverage our ARPA funds for this project. So this next slide demonstrates the 4 proposed projects. For the communities of Fairmead and Lavina, cal.net proposes to establish 2 microwave links to commercial towers and 2 existing cal.net sites at each of the communities. For the community of Chick Chance, one microwave link will be established to an existing cal.net site. And for the communities of Eastern Arcola and Ripperdan, CalNet proposes 2 microwave links to be established to a newly constructed tower. And this next slide provides you with a breakdown of the cost for the service areas and includes the cost of customer premise equipment, like modems that provide an access point for services which are typically located on the customer's home. So for the project timelines, the projects can be conducted simultaneously. So we're looking at anywhere from 8 to 12 months, and that, of course, is contingent upon any permitting processes or supply chain issues or things of that nature. Some benefits of the services that cal.net provides includes the following. Cal.net is a partner with Microsoft Airband Initiative, which offers free Microsoft services such as training in MS Office products and digital literacy training. They also participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program, which provides subsidies for low-income residents, which includes a $30 subsidy for low-income residents for broadband services. And subscribers can also receive a fully functional device such as computer or laptop for as little as $10 in conjunction with the Microsoft partnership. Yeah, thanks. So if the contract is approved, our goal is to not only provide available network services, but also provide affordable services for our communities. Staff is anticipating to work with cal.net to establish a county-funded program that will help to provide a subsidy for monthly service rates and equipment similar to a program that cal.net is working on with Tulare County. So we plan to report to your board at a subsequent meeting to approve the program and contract addendum if today's contract is approved. So with that said, staff is recommending approval of a budget adjustment in the amount of budget adjustment number 22-138 in the amount of $1.5 million and approval of the contract with cal.net in the amount of $1,274,545. And we have representatives from CalNet available if there are any questions.
Just to recap a little bit, those funds would be coming from ARPA funds.
ARPA funding, correct.
And this provides access to those communities from the provider.
Correct. And it should impact, I think it's 2,600 households, which is estimated.
Okay, 2,600 houses. And this is separate from the study that we're doing right now.
Correct. So the study that we're working on, they are identifying infrastructure projects in all unincorporated areas of the county. So they have a total of 12 project recommendations, and these are the top 5 priority projects that they've listed as part of their study. And we'll be returning to your board April 11th, I believe, with the results of that study.
So in your opinion, we're not getting the cart before the horse?
No, I made sure of that.
Okay.
I said,
yeah.
okay, so these 5 areas we're working on, are
Yeah.
these the areas that will have the most impact on our residents? And
Right.
they were able to.
So thank you for that. I
Uh-huh.
appreciate the information.
Yeah, of
Go
course.
ahead.
I do have a few things. You said that study's coming out in April, but
Yes,
that will
correct.
have no impact on this.
So basically with the study, the study is identifying projects and it's identifying ISPs that we could work with to go for 3 different types of state and federal funding for broadband access. So the study will incorporate these projects as part of the study. So it's not like they're left out of the study, if that makes sense.
No, I'm still not quite understanding because wouldn't it make sense to wait for the recommendations of that study before we move forward with something like this?
Yeah, Supervisor May, if I may, Joel Begay, County Administrative Office. I think what happened here was that there were 2 tracks going on. So with the American Rescue Plan Act dollars in your board's recommendation of setting aside $5 million for disadvantaged communities, the broadband projects for the 5 SDACs we call severely disadvantaged communities, which these 5 are, the highest priority was broadband access because they have 0 access right now. As that track was happening, the funding for the study was made available. So that study got started, and we made sure that, I guess as a process of confirmation, that this would have made it into the study anyway, but there was a separate track already to push broadband into these 5 severely disadvantaged communities as separately as a ARPA project. that your board approved, I believe January 2021.
So the funds would be coming from that
Correct.
designated ARPA fund.
Correct. While the funding for the other projects identified in the broadband study may come from other sources, federal infrastructure funds or other broadband initiatives that the state had.
And I think it's important to recognize that, you know, what we're doing with Cal.net here is more of a wireless solution for these individuals. I think ultimately the best thing to do would be to get fiber in the ground to improve those services. And I think the LATA study that we're doing would provide that information and help us direct funding to get that done. What we're doing right now is kind of a more short-term, I think, solution for these individuals that, as Joel pointed out, have no service. But I just wanted to hone in on one thing you said there, that this board originally committed $5 million to getting this services out to these communities. And we've been able to do it with 1.5 through our partnerships with Cal.net, as well as through our membership with the Rural Broadband Association. So just want to tip my hat to staff and thank you guys for, you know, going down this track and running both tracks and working to make best use of those ARPA funds and county dollars as a whole. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to continue because
Yeah.
we're saying this is a temporary fix until we can ultimately get fiber in the ground. But the reason why these are approved is because that these are underserved or severely disadvantaged communities. Wouldn't us providing fixed wireless, which I think we can all agree is not ideal, wouldn't that preclude other ISPs from securing other grants because now they're considered served communities?
Basically what we're doing now, as you know, Joel had mentioned, temporary fix, but basically the issue is funding. So with fiber in the ground, fiber to the home, those are multi-million-dollar projects, which we don't have the funding identified for at this point. So when he said quick fix, that's what he was kind of referring to. We're just trying to get service out to these communities as soon as we can.
Yeah, it just feels like we are putting the cart before the horse before this other study comes out. If there's other potential options to maybe secure some sort of fiber. It just seems like we are putting the cart before the horse, especially when the results of this study are coming out, you know, next month.
Next month.
Supervisor, if we make a suggestion, we could, we could delay considering or bring this back in consideration conjunction with the April 11 study. I did kind of want to make another comment on, I think maybe using the word temporary may have been, you know, a little fast and loose on our part. Fixed wireless is an alternative technology that's being used in rural areas. I think in working with Cal.net, in just estimating what it would cost to run fiber to a rural home, let's say from the likes of AT&T, we have heard feedback that it could cost upwards almost $1 million to run that fiber. And I guess the key question here is, where if AT&T is saying that it's a pricing that's dependent on whether or not they decide it's viable to run the fiber to those homes, right? So fixed wireless was identified as an alternative to deliver broadband. And from the towers itself, they're connected to fiber, right? So it's an alternative last mile project. But I don't think there's opposition probably from CalNet to consider this as part of the April 11 item. That way it's looked at more holistically, but I would apologize for our use of the word temporary. We didn't mean it to say that you're using a MiFi card until we get fiber. This may be the only cost viable alternative for broadband in some of these areas.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that
Yeah.
ultimately that this isn't the best option, but
Right.
I feel like we should at least utilize the consultants that we've hired to at least give the recommendations before we move forward on this.
I think that's a pretty good, really good point, Supervisor. We'll bring it back. Can we bring it back on April 11th? Yeah.
Rob? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to mention that number one, this is what a great victory this is, because we've been dealing with this for many, many years, and there's been an ask from Lavina and Fairmead and other communities for this type of broadband. And I was just going to mention, as far as the fiber goes, again, I'm not any kind of a expert in regards to broadband technology, but I know that, even in the west part of Madera, trying to get AT&T services, even within the city, with fiber is like it just doesn't happen, not going to happen. And then I look at communities, like Lavina, way the heck out there, and Fairmead and Ripperton and Easton. I mean, they're just so far remote, so far removed. I mean, I'm stunned that I heard $1 million. I was thinking it's more like add a couple of zeros behind that, because to me, it's not a temporary fix. It's the fix, and and fiber is unrealistic to think that that's ever going to happen in these communities. If these communities were right next to the city, that's a different story. But I just don't see that. It's just not viable.
Yeah, typically the ISPs target, those higher dense communities for fiber access. And we'll see. So when we bring this item back to your board, you'll see that the recommendation from Boston Consulting Group is fixed wireless for these 5 communities based on the topography in our area. But I think you have something to say? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyhow, I think it's a great idea to bring the item back to the board along with that study so that you can kind of see it holistically, like Joel mentioned, but thank you.
Yeah.
And then I have Linda Thomas from Cal.net that has a few words.
I just had a quick question. What on the wireless speed, what type of speed are we talking about for the community? And I know some things require more speed than others to operate. So can you give me some ideas on that? And I'm just interested. And I think
And Supervisor Poitras, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's what we hired the consultant to do, is to provide those answers.
well, that's why I asked the question originally, and it's not my intent to stop the process, but I think it's important to keep continuity in the process. And one of the things that we did was we got involved in the study, and I think it's important to hear the results of it. So I agree with you. Yes, go ahead now.
Thank you, supervisors. My name is Linda Thomas Matoyan, and I am a vice president at Cal.net. I retired from the community college system. I was the vice chancellor at West Hills Community College District on the west side of Fresno County. And I got involved with Cal.net because no one would provide internet to Coalinga. So once our students left campus, they were in the desert. There was no access. Cal.net's building out in Coalinga. So when I retired, they asked me to come work for them. We are funded by the federal government, the CAF2 awards. And so in order to get internet to places where other people won't take it, and I know they won't, that's what we do. Our motto is we go where other people will not. And we care about
Pretty
people.
cool motto.
Well, it's true. And that's why I work with them, because I am
That's Star
passionate.
Trek, right? Boldly go where no man has gone before.
Because I care about people in the Central Valley in rural areas who don't have any internet.
Right.
And I just want to clarify about fixed wireless. Our technology has to be equal to fiber. And so what I'm saying is we do 120, and that is the CAF2 requirement. We can't do anything different because
Talk
that's,
about megabyte per second,
pardon me?
MBS.
Yeah, 120. That's what CAF2 requires.
Yeah.
That's fast. That's more than any of us have at our home. I'm just telling you, I have 20 by 20. At my home, I pay $150 for it a month. And what we're offering our residents in Madera is different prices starting at $2 a month. And
Wow.
so plus all the Microsoft, because we are the only airband partner in the area. So there's devices. Everyone will get a home device for $10. They're professionally refurbished devices from Microsoft. So no one has to rely on a handheld phone when it goes to the supermarket. Someone can't do their homework at home. There's also a lot of Microsoft training on everything from Office to workforce development that comes free to our customers. So fixed wireless, I just want to correct the idea that fixed wireless is temporary or that it's some kind of lesser thing, because it's not. It's a way to efficiently and effectively cover a large amount of area with a fast, speed and not wait for fiber. I don't know, I'm sure that Supervisor Poitras knows Don Cameron on the west side of Fresno County. He has AT&T fiber running on the street in front of his home. He asked them how much it would take to run it up his driveway. It was $1.25 million to get it to his home. So the idea of running fiber to every rural home is like an off-ramp from 99 to every single rural home in the valley. It's unfeasible, and the state knows that. It's unfeasible. There's not enough money to do that. And so in order to put up towers, they have to be sitting on top of fiber or have microwave connections to fiber to provide service to people. And so it's not a lesser service. And these people have nothing. And, you know, waiting's fine. But if I had no internet and you're waiting, I would be, you know, I would not be happy. So we work really closely with the survey that's going on with the Boston Consulting Group. We're part of that process. We're looking through that process. We're looking at 5 more sites in Madera County that we could connect to our CAF2 builds. And so we're committed to Madera County and being a part of serving the population here.
That's exciting. I just want to mention that, and I know this is going to come out in the study because I know my area very well. I represent most of the west side.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, even living next to the city of Chowchilla, we have zero internet providing.
Right.
I can't even get it through my phone hardly.
Yeah.
I can barely get it through my phone slow enough to look at my agenda.
Right.
That's it's really, really difficult. So this is super exciting to enter the real world of technology
Yeah.
because we need access for this for business
Right.
and for, as you said, for education
Health,
and
economic development.
many opportunities there
Yeah.
that in fact farmers use
Right.
the
Ag tech.
GPS for farming. GPS farming is very popular. It's available on most tractors that they provide now, but it's very, very difficult to get the service out there
Correct.
in the community because it's
Right.
just not available.
Right.
So it's not just a problem in these 5 communities that we're discussing. This is a county-wide problem
Right.
for Madera County, and getting it solved is a high priority. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
But I agree with my partner here who's brought up the idea of keeping the continuity with the study. We don't want to look like we're just ignoring what we've already started.
Yeah.
And it's not an insult to Cal.net but thank you. Thank you. We're excited about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment.
Go
So
ahead.
I met with staff a couple weeks ago for the study that's coming up and I was briefed on it. So thank you for that. And it will reiterate what this item already proposes. So I'm prepared to move forward and seek approval because the study will reiterate that. So that's my motion.
Is the study done?
Study will be coming out 11th, right?
Yeah.
Is it done already though? Hasn't.
We are working through the final drafts of it, but the project proposals that were presented on our one-on-ones with the board members are those projects that are coming through in the study as recommendations or recommended projects.
Let me ask this before we make a determination on how we just move forward at this point. Are we looking at a time-sensitive approval of this, or is waiting a couple of weeks before the study, for the study, a prudent thought?
I think since we're using the ARPA funds, they have to be spent by 2024, correct? Yeah.
So it's
So
not that-
depending on, these projects vary from 8 to 12 months, but depending on any delays, it could extend past that.
Chair, I'd be really interested in just moving forward with this item. I mean, I think I understand the concerns about the study and making sure that everything's in line, but I feel very confident in staff's direction and want to make best use of their time. And I don't know that we need to have them back here to review this item again in a couple weeks. And it would be my desire to move forward today.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just like to reiterate comments made, most recent comments by my colleagues. I think if it was one of these things where gosh, I think it's going to be really close either way, you know, man, maybe this, it'll be here, but we'll save some money over here. But to me, it's like the difference from the east to the west as far as what these
Yeah.
costs are. And I just don't see I can appreciate waiting for a study if there's, you know, something that's really close, but it's not, you know, so I agree with my colleagues.
Okay, okay, so I'm hearing a consensus that we need to move forward the vote, and I'm fine with that. I just, when I brought it up, I wanted to hear staff's
Yeah.
thoughts on why we were doing that, and
Yeah,
and
it just,
so I think I've heard that. I think I've heard a clear
okay.
thought in your direction, so I do think the study was very, very interesting in talking to the Boston group.
Yeah.
It's been very, very informative to me as a supervisor and kind of like I don't feel much alone when he told me, you know, hey, this is definitely a countywide problem. That's very, very interesting. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and like I said, before anyone thinks I'm anti-internet, anti-internet, 'cause that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, it just, the timing on the projects, they just happened simultaneously. We had originally begun discussions with Cal.net. The LATA grant opportunity came about. We applied for it. We were awarded with it. And so we kind of ran with it. So the timing of the Boston Consulting Group grant, you know, we weren't even sure if we were going to get that for that LATA grant. So we moved forward with Cal.net, and it's
Right.
taken, you know, this long to negotiate the contract and go through the details.
Right.
And so the timing, you're right. It's not right. It's like we're putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
I agree entirely, but.
Well, I want to thank RCRC too for their push
Yes,
on
definitely.
rural broadband and the getting the study doesn't hurt us because it puts us in a position to receive more grants, more funding because we have the study in place. So and also, by the way, to the general public, when these IFPs come in and we discuss with them, there's a lot of negotiating that goes on to get the best possible deal for the constituency. So it's not something where they just bounce in and we can charge this much when there's public funds expended. There has to be certain things that take place there. And I really appreciate Cal.net's interest in our community. That commitment, I hear it in your voice. I'm excited about that because we need it badly. And so very happy to have that. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Is there public comment?
Yeah, I will go to public comment. So any public comment in the room here? We have two online. I'll go to Andrea first. Andrea? Andrea?
Mrs.
Okay,
Uribe?
I'm not hearing Andrea, so Madeline?
Yes, good morning supervisors. This is Madeline Harris from Leadership Council. So as noted earlier, this is a big community priority for folks that we're working with in Lavinia and Fairmead. And I think, you know, Supervisor Poitras and Supervisor Rogers are totally correct. The lack of internet infrastructure in rural communities makes this a really viable option and probably the only like short-term and cost-effective viable option for internet access. And so, you know, residents that we work with would like to see this contract move forward as soon as possible. There are folks in Lavinia who have to drive their kids all the way to the city of Madera for them to be able to submit homework electronically over the internet. And with folks having really limited transportation options, that's just not feasible for people to continue to do that. For their kids to be able to, you know, complete their school assignments or attend classes online. So the lack of internet access is really limiting people's access to opportunity. And the ARPA funds are a key opportunity to be able to bring internet access to rural communities. So I would encourage the Board of Supervisors to move forward on this as soon as possible. And I think that the comments from the board around this being the most feasible and cost-effective solution are totally right on. I couldn't agree more. So I would just encourage you to move forward on this as soon as possible. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Is she still there? Andrea, are you back? Andrea? I'm not hearing Andrea. Okay, well, I have one quick comment and then I know Super has a comment as well. This is not only viable for students who are in public schools, but homeschooled as well. I think it's super important for those students. I have granddaughters who are homeschooled. All my grandkids, six of them are homeschooled right now. So I really see this as a huge benefit for them as well. It expands their world, and we want to give every child every opportunity to have the opportunity to do research online and learn. So that's an important aspect. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Supervisor.
Yeah, so this wasn't a question of whether internet is good in these underserved areas. We all know that, having access to internet is key to living in society today, especially in underserved areas. That's not what this is about. This is about a study that we had paid for. And it was my understanding that we were doing this prior to the study. But if staff has already worked essentially on the final drafts and that believe that this is already in there, then I'm okay with it. I just, when we pay for consultants and we pay the money to provide us information because we're not the experts on internet, it seems reasonable that we would wait for that study before we move forward. But it's 2 weeks away. If you're saying that we're already pretty much there, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and I think also the study, like I said, is going to help us in the future with more grants and more opportunities. It's like a lot of things. If you don't have if it's not shovel ready, you're not gonna get in on the hunt for some of those things.
Correct.
So I think that creates a better scenario there too for the future. So, okay, so let's bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
I'll take Letty with and you with the
Ladies
second.
first.
Is that good?
Ladies
That's right,
first.
ladies first.
Okay, and I'm really happy about this for all of the communities mentioned are in my district.
That's Women's History Month.
And I'm
so
really, really happy about
take it.
serving them in this regard. It's very important to them, as I mentioned, so I don't have to keep pontificating on that.
And I'm really happy for my county.
Yes, I am too. Absolutely. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Supervisor Wamha.
Yes.
I'm sorry. That would have been Supervisor McCully.
Yeah.
Yes.
Supervisor Wamha.
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras.
Yes.
Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Congratulations to us.
Thank you all.
Yes.
And thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
I just like to say that I appreciate Supervisor Wamhoff's comments because it is, in probably 99.9% of the time, and even perhaps even now to, have the study done before we move forward. I know in my discussions, when I had that little preview with the, I guess it's Boston, we actually kind of talked about it a little bit in terms of some of the options, as far as fiber versus fixed wireless. And so we kind of went over those things even during, so I kind of had a little bit of a heads up ahead of time in terms of what, what was going to be probably presented here in a couple of weeks. But I just want to let you know that you're not alone. And, we understand completely. And so I just want to throw that out.
There you go. Super. All right, let's go to our public hearing, 7A.
7A, hearing for adoption of a resolution amending the joint groundwater sustainability plan for the Madera Subbasin and authorizing the Director of Water and Natural Resources to take any and all actions necessary to submit a revised joint groundwater sustainability plan to the Department of Water Resources. Discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution amending the joint groundwater sustainability plan for the Madera Subbasin, which is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Water Code Section 107 to 8.6, as well as CEQA guidelines sections 15307, 15308, and 15061.
the very capable Stephanie and Agneson at the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Stephanie and Agneson here with Mike Linden, Deputy County Counsel. And then online on Zoom, we have John Davids with Davids Engineering, Katie Klug with Davids Engineering, and Pete Leffler with Ludorf and Scalmanini Consulting Engineers. So Madam Clerk of the Board, John is going to do the presentation. So he will need to be unmuted, please. Thank you. And we're ready to share the screen that I have up. Thank you. John, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I'm trying to click on my start video so you guys can see me this morning as well. But can you hear me in the chambers there?
We got you good, John. Thank you for being here.
You bet, you bet. All right, let me see if I can share video. It looks like it hasn't enabled yet. So I'll just go ahead and get started. And if the video becomes available, I'll go ahead and turn it on here in a minute. Hey, good morning again, Chair Rogers. It's good to see you again this week. And good morning to the rest of the board as well. John Davids, as Stephanie mentioned, with Davids Engineering. I have about 16 quick slides for you this morning. But before I jump into things, I wanted to cover a few initial items. First, the 180-day statutory revision timeline, as you all can imagine, is tight to begin with. But with the release of DWR's final determinations on March 2nd, the process has been made exponentially more difficult. And so we appreciate your patience and the patience of your staff over the course of the last 3 weeks. Second, while I'm before you this morning, this certainly has been a team effort between Davids Engineering and Ludorf and Scalmanini. And as Stephanie mentioned, both Kitty Klug from the DE team and then, of course, Pete Leffler with Ludorf and Scalmanini are also joining me this morning. Lastly, and to set the stage for our discussion today, I asked ChatGPT this morning the following question. And the question was this: how hard is sustainable groundwater management in the Madera Subbasin? And I'll read you ChatGPT's response. Sustainable groundwater management in the Madera Subbasin can be challenging due to several factors. The Madera Subbasin is located in the San Joaquin Valley of California, which is one of the most productive agricultural regions in the world. This high level of agricultural activity has led to significant groundwater pumping, which has resulted in declining groundwater levels and land subsidence. Additionally, the Madera Subbasin is also facing the effects of climate change, such as drought and increased temperatures, which further exacerbate the groundwater depletion issue. To address these challenges, sustainable groundwater management in the Madera Subbasin will require coordinated efforts from various stakeholders, including local and state agencies, water users, and other interested parties. This may involve implementing regulations and policies to manage groundwater pumping and recharge, encouraging water conservation and efficiency practices, and exploring alternative water sources such as recycled water and surface water storage. Overall, sustainable groundwater management in the Madera Subbasin will require a long-term commitment from all stakeholders to ensure that the region's water resources are managed in a way that balances the needs of the environment, the economy, and society. So it's pretty amazing to me, and I think ChatGPT just about nailed it. And this revised GSP effort reflects a significant level of cooperative coordination with all 7 GSAs in the Madera Subbasin and outlines the long-term commitment of the stakeholders to ensure sustainability. So with that, let me try my video again. Nope, okay. Stephanie, if you would, next slide, please. Okay, perfect. So this is the roadmap for our discussion today. I'll move through a recap of the technical work activities completed to date and the coordination amongst the different parties. We'll review the Madera joint GSP deficiencies at a high level. I think we're all at this point generally familiar with the deficiencies that DWR has provided us with. We'll look at the impact of the Chowchilla inadequate determination. I want to be really clear this morning that we're here to discuss the revised joint GSP in Madera, but of course the Chowchilla inadequate determination had significant impacts on the technical approaches being used in Madera, and again, we're going to cover that this morning. We will review the technical revisions proposed. There are 4 big buckets for those. The first of which is groundwater levels. The next is subsidence, interconnected surface water, and then lastly, and I think most importantly from my perspective, DWR's comments with respect to coordination between the 7 different GSAs and the 4 different GSPs. Then I'll move to an update on the other groundwater sustainability agencies within the Madera Subbasin, very specifically where they are with respect to their review and approval status and the actions that have been taken to date. And then I'll close, as we customarily do, with a focus on the next steps. Where are we headed after today at 5 p.m. and then be available to answer any questions that the board may have. Next slide, please. So with respect to a recap of our technical work activities and coordination, the DELSCE team met very early on with the joint GSP GSAs, and the guidance from the joint GSP GSAs was to go away and work with the other technical leads with the goal, the very clear goal, of trying to get to yes from a technical perspective. And if we could get to yes from a technical perspective, then the policy folks would weigh in and we could see if we could get to yes overall. Back on January 23rd, earlier this year, the coordination work group met. We met in your offices there on the 3rd floor. All the parties were involved, policy folks and technical folks alike. And all of the 7 GSAs in the Madera Subbasin reaffirmed their desire to get a set of revised GSPs submitted by the March 21st, 2023 deadline. And of course, that was a foundational decision that guided our work moving forward. The GSA technical leads have been meeting weekly, oftentimes several times a week over the course of the last several months. And of course, outside of those weekly meetings, we've been engaged in frequent dialogue. And so much so that I think there's dozens of sidebar discussions and emails flying between the parties on a weekly basis. From the technical leads perspective, we feel as though we've made significant progress, and I think you're going to see that, and we're going to underscore that today. I think we've broken down and broken through some of the institutional hurdles that perhaps had existed, and again, really made some good progress, perhaps just at a technical level, but this is extremely important nonetheless, and I think you're going to see the results of our efforts here later in today's presentation. And lastly, with respect to this slide, just a reminder for you all, because it's an important reminder, that all the work that has been done to date has been covered by a grant that the GSAs have with the Department of Water Resources. My recollection is for this component of the grant, the dollar amount is about $500,000 of the $7.6 million grant that was recently awarded to the subbasin by DWR. Next slide, please. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into just a quick review of the deficiencies that were outlined in DWR's September 22nd, 2022 letter. The first of which was related to coordination. And specifically, DWR said the plan fails to demonstrate sufficient coordination between GSPs on the sustainability goal, the water budget, and descriptions of undesirable results. In my words, that means how are you going to manage the subbasin sustainably if you have different ideas of what sustainability is and how to get there? And we've gone to great lengths to clear that up as part of this revision. Secondly, the department said the plan does not provide sufficient information and consistent rationale related to the establishment of minimum thresholds for chronic lowering of groundwater levels. We feel like we've addressed that as well, and you'll see that here in the coming slides. Third, the plan does not sufficiently demonstrate that undesirable results related to land subsidence are not present and are not likely to occur in the subbasin. Again, you'll see the results of our work here later, and again, we feel like we've addressed that. Number four, the plan does not sufficiently demonstrate that interconnected surface water or undesirable results related to depletions of interconnected surface water are not present and are not likely to occur in the subbasin. And we are going to cover the approach with respect to interconnected surface water here. I will mention, I think, because it's an appropriate time to mention this, interconnected surface water. I don't know that there's a GSP in the San Joaquin Valley that got this perfectly right in DWR's eyes. DWR understands the significant data gaps that exist here. We have developed, as part of our work, a work plan that looks to fill those data gaps. And DWR has given a pass, if you will, to the other GSAs and consequently their GSPs, and given folks the time to address this as part of the 2025 update. So there's a bit of a punt here because we're still learning and we're still working to understand what that connectivity looks like and how it works within the context of the Madera Subbasin. Next slide, please. Okay, so what were the impacts of the Chowchilla inadequate determination? Again, as I mentioned, we received these on March 2nd, so just about 12 business days ago. And then that's important because the DE and LSCE team also worked on the Chowchilla revised GSP. And we were working very diligently with the other GSA technical leads in using the same approaches that we had used in Chowchilla. And we were essentially done with a draft GSP back in early March that had, again, needed to be reviewed and revised as a function of the inadequate determination in Chowchilla. So in Chowchilla, there were three inadequate determinations, or three components that led to the inadequate determination. The first of which is with respect to groundwater levels, subsidence, and then interconnected surface water. And as I noted there on the slide, okay for now, and that's consistent with the comments I made just moments ago, namely that no one got it right, everybody needs help, and we'll look to the 2025 update to ensure that we get that right. On the groundwater level side of things, DWR raised several issues. These are our words, not necessarily DWR's, but tried to make this in plain English and easy for folks to understand. The first of which was impacts of groundwater level MTs on subsidence. In the particular case of Chowchilla, the groundwater level MTs were lower than the groundwater level MTs that we were using as a proxy for subsidence. DWR flagged that as an issue. There was an issue raised between the modeled versus actual data, very specifically that the modeled data was lower than the actual data. And then we had an impact analysis for ag and municipal wells as a function of the MTs that were set, and specifically noted that there would be approximately 25% impact to ag wells and about a 10% impact to municipal wells. I think that the ag folks from our work on the Chowchilla side of things realized that that was the cost of doing business. With respect to municipal wells, DWR clearly was concerned about the impacts to those municipal wells. So much so that I think my interpretation of the letter is that municipal wells ought to be included in the domestic well mitigation program that is established for the subbasins. On the subsidence side of things, we went to great lengths to analyze residual subsidence versus new subsidence and tried to capture our work, and consistent with some work that was done at Stanford. DWR said, that's great, we thank you for your diligence, but we put residual subsidence and new subsidence into the same bucket. It is very clear to me that the sustainable management criteria must be a rate in feet per year of actual subsidence, measured subsidence within the subbasin. And then third there, that the PMAs, projects and management actions, need to clearly note the subsidence mitigation. This is an interesting one for me. As you all can imagine, many of you are engaged with implementations of projects and management actions currently. And I think it would be easy for you to draw a parallel between any project that gets implemented and the benefits to subsidence. As an example, a groundwater recharge project clearly has a benefit to subsidence, land fallowing, multi-benefit, all of those projects, demand management, all of those projects have a direct benefit to land subsidence. And we've cleared that up in this submittal. And then again, the impact analysis for ag and municipal wells. Next slide, please. So what has the impact of the Chowchilla inadequate determination been? Again, as I mentioned, significant impact to the revisions in Madera 12 business days ago. We have reviewed the GSPs that were determined to be adequate. So we reviewed the 6 adequate plans and analyzed what would be the best approach for Madera. Not in isolation, I should say, not just between DE and LSCE, but we went through this with all of the GSA's technical leads in the Madera subbasin. Suffice it to say, we've pivoted to what we feel is an adequate approach for the proposed revisions. That approach is predominantly based on the approach that was taken in Merced. And Chair Rogers, you had the benefit of hearing some of this as part of last week's Chowchilla GSP Advisory Committee, and so I know you're intimately familiar with these issues. At a fundamental level, we're operating on the premise that the GSAs want to strive for a revised set of GSPs that might be determined adequate. And then in parentheses there, notwithstanding the practical implementation side of things and desire to focus on PMA implementation. I will tell you, and I think we all generally fall in the same spot, that many folks are ready to move on from planning. I put myself in that bucket. I think everybody's ready to roll up their sleeves and continue to work on implementations of the project and management actions, and the success of the basin hinges on doing so. Then lastly, it's an enormous lift late in the game. And again, I want to underscore here the appreciation for your patience and the patience of your staff as we work to try and position the sub-basin as best as possible to obtain an adequate determination from DWR. Next slide, please. So what are the proposals with respect to the technical revisions? Let's first start with the groundwater level sustainable management criteria. Our recommendation, and as is proposed in the revisions, is to set the MTs at the fall 2015 levels. Okay, so I know folks are paying attention. That's a big step. That's a big deal. The interim milestones will dip below the MTs in 5-year increments until 2040. Okay, and the lowest of those interim milestones we'll see in 2030. And then we'll be 60% back in 2035. And I'm going to show you a hydrograph here in a minute, so no need to memorize this. You'll see a visual of this in a minute. 60% back in 2035, and then fully back to the MTs, again, the fall 2015 levels in 2040. I want to make one very clear observation here, and that is that DWR has articulated to us that dipping below the MTs during the implementation period is okay. And in fact, the approved plans have been successful in using this approach, and our work is predicated on that, right? What has this resulted in? This has resulted in significantly higher MTs than the original joint GSP. I think it's important for this group to note and to understand that the GSAs retain the ability to change the sustainable management criteria as part of the 5-year updates. And this provides a good nexus with the subsidence, changes to the subsidence SMCs that we're going to see in a minute, very specifically that they're protective of not further exacerbating subsidence after the implementation period. So we're going to look at the hydrographs in a minute, but before we do that, let's go ahead and look at the groundwater level monitoring network. Next slide, please. So what you see before you are the RMS wells in the joint GSP. Those that have the blue circles around them indicate those that are being used for the groundwater level sustainability indicators. There are 6 in total within the plan area, and the spatial distribution across the plan area is generally good and acceptable. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the simplest of all hydrographs, and as I mentioned, Pete Leffler is on the phone this morning, and to the extent that there are additional questions with respect to this approach, I'm certain that Pete can easily jump in and answer those questions. But again, this is the simplest. I'm a simple guy. I like simple. Let me just try and walk you through this very clearly. So as I mentioned, the MTs are set at the fall 2015 levels, either observed or measured, modeled. In this particular case, we have an observed value that has, or a measured value rather, that has good relationship with the model data, and that's indicated by the blue dot and the arrow that you see to the left in the 2015 timeline. So if you were to move to the x-axis, go down to 2015, go vertically up, you can see the blue dot there and the arrow pointing to it. And then if you pan over to the right, you'll see that that's reflective of the MT at 26 feet MSL. The next important thing is the circles that you see. Those are the interim milestones. So you can see as we move down in 2025, we're at minus 31 feet MSL. We bottom out, as I suggested earlier, at 2030 at minus 45 feet MSL. And then we work our way back up. As projects come online, we begin to change that trend and work our way back up to the minimum threshold. Again, the fall 2015 levels. We get about 60% of the way back up by 2035 at minus 2 feet MSL, and then we find ourselves back up to the minimum threshold by 2040. One of the other important lines that you see is the blue line at the top right of the screen where it says MO equals 82 feet MSL. That is equivalent to either the observed or the modeled value for the fall 2010 groundwater conditions. And in this particular case, it's a modeled value, okay? Next slide, please. So let's shift gears from the groundwater level revisions to the subsidence SMC recommendations and revisions. Again, this is another one of the blinking lights. This is the headline, if you will, and consistent with the Merced approach. Our proposal is that the minimum threshold for subsidence equals 0, notwithstanding some measurement error up to about, nope. All right, things changed a little bit on my screen. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. Notwithstanding measurement error of approximately 0.16 feet per year. We've broken the subbasin up into two areas, a western area and an eastern area, and you're going to see that visually on the next slide. With respect to the interim milestones, we're following the same approach from a timing perspective that we did with respect to groundwater levels. In the west, we're looking at 0.6 feet per year up until 2025. And then we begin again as projects come online to reverse that trend, 0.4 feet per year at 2030, 0.2 feet per year at 2035, and then 0 when we end the implementation period in 2040. On the east side of things, and I should mention on the west side, as you all well know, that's where we see the highest rates of subsidence. On the east side, those rates are lower. We begin at 0.2 feet per year in 2025, 0.13 feet in 2030, 0.07 feet in 2035, and then as consistent with both groundwater levels and the previous comments in the western area, back up to 0 by 2040. That initial rate is based on the maximum annual rate of subsidence that was observed between the 2014-2015 time period. And again, this approach and methodology is consistent with what was used in Merced. We are establishing, as DWR illuminated in their comments back to us, the lack of SMC across the entirety of the subbasin. In this case, we are establishing SMC across the entirety of the subbasin. Similar to water levels, the GSAs retain the ability to change SMC as part of the 5-year update. And then as I alluded to before, there's a good nexus between the approach here in subsidence and the approach being proposed and undertaken with respect to groundwater levels. All right, let's go ahead and look at the monitoring locations. This is a map of the subbasin. Again, as I mentioned, there are two areas, the east and the west. We have termed the area on the west side the area of subsidence concern, and you can see that exactly. Thank you for using the pointer there. And then the area on the east side of the basin as the subsidence monitoring area. On the west side, those monitoring locations are shown with the yellow dots. There are 3 of them. On the east side, those monitoring locations are shown with the purple dots and the purple square. There are 4 of them. Next slide, please. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time on the interconnected surface water here. I'm going to quickly review the approach, recognizing that DWR is going to find that we need more work here and has given us the ability to do that work as part of the 2025 update. Nonetheless, here are the recommendations that have been included. With respect to the metric, the percent, we were using a percent of time that the groundwater level is connected, so above the stream FOWAG. With respect to the minimum threshold and the measurable objective, we're looking at maintaining the historical percent of time connected in the future. So we've looked historically, how often and what percentage of time is the stream connected? Is there connectivity between the groundwater aquifer and the stream system? And we're looking to maintain that into the future. And we would do so based on a rolling 5-year average. This is important, at least from our perspective, given the changes in the hydrologic cycle. Of course, this year has been fantastic, but it does come on the heels of sequential critically dry years. And then again, this is becoming repetitive, but it's repetitive for a reason because it's important. The GSAs retain the ability to change SMC as part of the 5-year update. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've moved through the three items so far, groundwater levels, subsidence, and interconnected surface water. Let's touch on the last one. And again, as I mentioned at the opening, I think this is perhaps the most important of the deficiencies that DWR flagged back in September of last year. The first thing that we've done to address those deficiencies, and these, it's worth noting that these materialize themselves in 2 different documents, okay? The first of which is an addendum to the coordination agreement, and that does 3 things. It includes a consistent sustainability goal across the entirety of the subbasin, okay? All 7 GSAs have embraced this goal, and all 4 GSPs will have the same goal. That goal is the same goal that was proposed and adopted in the joint GSP back in 2020. Others in the basin have accepted our goal. That's a good thing. On the sustainable yield side of things, another positive outcome from my perspective is that we are proposing to use the modeling that was done as part of the joint GSP that covers the entirety of the basin. And from that modeling, we derived a sustainable yield number. And that number has been accepted, at least at face value for purposes today, recognizing that additional work will need to be done as part of the 2025 update by all of the GSAs within the basin. We've also included current and projected water balances. Interestingly enough, the coordination agreement that was prepared and completed back in 2020 included reference to these necessary components. It's my understanding that there was some confusion and not clear guidance from DWR on what needed to be included at the time. Nonetheless, we hope we've cleared that up here. So again, it includes three different things: a consistent sustainability goal, consistent sustainable yield, and current and projected water balances for all 7 GSAs within the subbasin. That is a standalone document that will be part of this revised GSP. The second document is a domestic well mitigation MOU. Of course, this has been the subject of much discussion amongst the GSAs for many years now. The agreement amongst the parties is to establish establish the program rather within the first 5 years. So that's by 2025. This is consistent with the Merced approach. There are some guiding principles and some preliminary components to that, inclusive of a preliminary organizational structure and flow path for implementation. But the details and the funding and/or the proportionate responsibility for how that program gets stood up will be discussed by the GSAs soon. In fact, I would suggest that we start this. Perhaps the team needs a bit of a break tomorrow, but let's get back to business on Thursday. I think it's more formal than a project and management action. It very clearly, again, the idea here is to, at least from my perspective, is to document the coordination that has occurred amongst the GSAs and the commitment to get together, to sit in a room and struggle through these very difficult issues. We've included a revised GSP and 5-year update timeline in the revised GSP and the correspondence that's going to be headed to DWR by close of business today. Again, I think that's indicative of, it comes from, first, the meeting that we had back on January 23rd of the coordination work group. And I think it's indicative, and I hope it's indicative of the parties' desire to continue to work together and roll up our sleeves and get going on the 5-year update. That's going to be a big lift. We included specific reference to the quarterly meetings of the coordination work group. Again, this is a byproduct of the January 23rd meeting when we got in the room. Again, I think we had a good discussion. I hope others share that same sentiment. But there was a desire to continue to meet on a quarterly basis to continue to wrestle with through these very difficult issues. This last bullet, I think, is just indicative, at least in my mind, of the progress that we've made and realization of the struggles that are associated with having a subbasin with multiple GSPs. And so I'm not going to say that this is a guaranteed outcome of our work to date, but I think there's at least a potential from a technical side of things to end up in a place where we have one GSP as part of the 5-year update. I think from a management perspective and a coordination perspective, that would be a really good move in the right direction. Next slide, please. All right, so let's provide an update on the actions or pending actions of the other GSAs within the subbasin. On the joint GSP side of things, of course, as you all know, there are 4 GSAs. We're meeting now. The MID meeting is at 12:05. So I will quickly commute from this meeting over to the MID board meeting to give them a similar presentation and have a similar discussion with them. The City of Madera met at 6 p.m. yesterday. There's a green light there. Madera Water District meets at 1 p.m. today. On the Gravelly Ford side of things, they met yesterday. Root Creek also met yesterday. Newstone met last week. All indications are that we're a go. Engines are ready for liftoff, and I wish we had another week, frankly, to make sure that we had addressed and precluded any unintended sort of inconsistencies across the plans. But we're going to get all of the revised GSPs submitted by close of business today. So with that, Chair Rogers, I think that, well, let me just one more slide, and that's the next step slide. So we're gonna, again, as I mentioned, the joint GSP will go in today. We'll start on the required 2025 update. We'll move forward. In fact, we have the first quarterly meeting of the coordination work group on the calendar now. That will be in April. The date escapes me now, but that is already scheduled. And then we'll continue to explore the potential for one GSP as part of the 2025 update. And with that, I think I'm at the right spot now. That concludes my presentation for today, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board on this item?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I have a comment. First of all, thank you very much. You've done a lot of heavy lifting, and as you commented on, you're just at the beginning. Lifting in the next few years is going to make this look like it's like 5-pound weights. But anyway, so I was looking at slide number 9, and I think the line is off compared to what you're saying. You've got a circle that says I guess it's the threshold, the lowest threshold is going to be in 2030, but it actually shows it in like 2033.
Yeah.
Shouldn't that line be shifted to the left?
20, let's see here. I think the red line that's across the bottom should be deleted. And then so what you see are the green lines there are the modeled projections. So in the final submission, we're going to actually pull those modeled projections out. But I think so that will be gone. But the circle that you see in 2030 is the correct spot. And then the red line that you see for groundwater level MT, that should be removed and replaced by the new MT. So there are a couple cleanup items there. You're correct.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that can be rather confusing.
Yeah.
Because, then I'm looking at 2040, I'm going, well, wait a minute, it doesn't match with,
Yep, you got it.
2015 and so forth. So,
Yep.
okay, good. And then in regards to, getting to where we want to be in 2030, and then we're really looking at, of course, there's going to be a lot of work between now and then, but then, looking as we move back up, adding more and more water to our aquifer, diminishing that overdraft. What do you think are some of the measures that you're hearing people talking about amongst the GSAs as far as achieving that goal?
Well, I think the plans, the projects and management actions that were set forth in the original GSP continue. And I think one of the things that I think we need to understand and commit to is the desire and the ability and the need to adaptively manage, right? So if we're implementing projects and management actions and we don't see the response that we have forecasted or projected, we're going to need to do more, and perhaps we're going to need to do different things. So I think we need to continue with implementation of the projects and management actions that are outlined. And we need to be very clear and very dedicated to tracking the success of those projects and moving in a direction that gets us back to these MTs that we've set. You've highlighted, Supervisor Poitras, the exact thing that I think many of us are ready to do, and that is to roll up the sleeves and get ready and move forward and continue the good work on implementation. That is the linchpin, from my perspective, in success within this subbasin and many subbasins within the state.
Okay. And then my last question would be, thank you for the answer, by the way. And my last question is, how did we get to a higher minimum threshold? Say in 2030, that's higher than it was previously. How did we get there? Or what methodology, or how did the group come up with that number?
Well, so let me just give a bit of history here. So the history is that, as you will recall, when we went through and did preparation of the original GSP, which predates my time with the team, but nonetheless, I'm familiar with the approach. The MTs were set in a way that allowed for continued flexibility within the basin. And I think, frankly, folks were concerned about dipping below those minimum thresholds and the impacts during the implementation period that the GSAs would experience as a result of that. And I think what we've heard now over the course of the last couple of years is, hey, look, it's okay to dip below those minimum thresholds during the implementation period. That's to be expected. The key is that at the end of the implementation period, you're at a place that ensures sustainability. And that's why, again, the approach model here was back to the approach taken in Merced, and 2015, sort of the date that sort of coincides with the origination of Sigma. If we can get back to that date through implementation of projects, this basin is going to be in a good spot to be sustainable moving forward.
Very good.
But
Thank you.
It's a big change from where the MTs were previously.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, just to make some comments on some of the things that we discussed at the Chowchilla sub-basin discussions. Really important are management practices. And when you look at the basin, you have some areas where the wells are below the cork and clay layers. So you've got wells on the east side, mostly below the cork and clay layer because of the lay of the geography of the land. That's the way it happens. And then on the west side, you have wells both below and above the cork and clay layer. And one of the practices that has been done, particularly in the Triangle T area, was that as they recharged in 2017, they recharged 60,000 acre feet in 1 year. And as they recharge that up, the water, that upper aquifer is what is getting recharged. And the clay layer has been significantly compressed in that area. So it's going to take probably a lot more than that to get it down to the lower layer. But and may take years in perspective. But one of the things that we discussed is a practice of managing your water by shifting to pumping from the upper aquifer versus the lower aquifer. And as a result of that, you're eliminating the subsidence that occurs by the compression of the cork. So this is something that we can discuss as a policy. It's not necessarily, it's one of the things that's discussed, I think, in the plan, but that implementation will have to be something we roll out and discuss with farmers and people in the process. But I think it's important that we keep that before us. In addition to that, there are some policy changes we're going to have to make as a county in regards to our requirement that wells, when a deep well is pumped, another well has to be sealed off. We need to change that policy simply because those shallow wells are going to become viable as we recharge the upper aquifer, and we're going to want our constituents to pump from that upper aquifer versus the lower aquifer. So I think, Matt, I'm giving you kind of a heads up on that, along with Stephanie. Stephanie can clue you in more on the details of that, I think. But that was one of the things that I was made aware of and we discussed. So we want our policies be consistent with the need and to feed the need. Let's see. I think that was just one thing I wanted to point.
And of course,
Go ahead.
the county as a whole has well permitting authority. So you
Right.
could change those policies over and above what goes on for the GSA.
Exactly. And it's important that we coordinate that with our GSA plans. You can't have conflicting policies. We're not like the state. So. And I just want to say again that I'm really grateful to see the hundreds of entities that are stepping up. I believe there are hundreds of farmers and entities out there who are recharging using the governor's executive order. And I want to thank staff. I want to congratulate staff again on that big step that has been taken to get this policy in place. Our Madera County staff was directly inputting into the governor's office. And I believe Madera County was the impetus for this change. And it's just great to have that. necessary. So thank you and congratulations. Any comments or questions from the board? You have any comments on that, what I just, Stephanie, any thoughts?
Well, we're very enthusiastic about the executive order and the ability for farmers to take flood water and potentially get a credit. Your board has to adopt a permanent credit policy for that to happen. I would say one thing that I have heard is frustration from folks who are not necessarily right next to the river
Right.
or a waterway, who are a little bit further away, which would obviously need a distribution system, which was part of the rate study.
Right. And I think it highlights not only the need for conveyance, but I think if I was to advise farmers right now, I would say, talk to your neighbor and talk to your neighbors about interconnectivity and how to connect with each other. Utilize that, your abilities, which you have to move water and move it where it needs to be moved. So, and I've in talking with, we've had a lot of input and talking with various people. And syndication is a very important thing. Sometimes you can't afford to do these things alone. So working with your neighbor, one particular group was discussing wanting to help neighbors who didn't have that ability. Well, you can help by allowing them to participate with you in the recharge, the purchase of the recharge water. And an MOU between you as to who gets that credit and what credit is issued. So I think that we will, I believe that we would be remiss in not recognizing those kind of arrangements. And I think we will. It's going to be necessary to syndicate and work with each other to make these things happen. They're not going to happen in many cases on their own. And another thing too, I recognize, and I know our staff does, that there has to be an economic incentive for this to work. And that economic incentive, of course, will be the credit that is given to the water usage in the future. I know of one farmer who called me this week, and I'll be meeting with them tomorrow at lunch about they spent on their family farm $80,000 to recharge water so far, and that's just their expense so far. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money, and they're doing it on the hopes that they get the credit for that for their farm. I can tell you right now, I'm looking. My eyeballs are looking at that, and we want that kind of activity. We need that kind of activity, and the only way, this is our future. This is our future, and we're preserving it through that kind of activity. So that's all I can say at this point. We're developing the policies. They're happening as we go along, I think. And this is new ground for us, new ground for you. Let's plow it together. So, any other comments? Okay, we'll go out to the public. Any public comment from anyone in this room? Okay, I have someone online who wishes to comment. Andrea,
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, nice. All right. Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon. My name's Andrea Uribe, and I'm a policy advocate for Leadership Council. And I have a couple comments on this. And the GSP revisions still state that the cost of implementing demand management on a faster trajectory would not be cost effective from a sub-basin wide perspective, and that it is essentially cheaper to just let thousands of wells go dry. Meanwhile, the cost of replacing domestic wells is being drastically underestimated at $30,000 per well. But we know that many wells are having to be drilled around 450 to 650 feet, depending on where folks live in the subbasin, and the drilling depth drives up the cost of well replacement significantly. Is there an estimate to mitigation for municipal wells? Also, a projected 10% impact to municipal wells is completely unacceptable, and that indicates that the impact to shallower domestic wells may be much higher than currently estimated in the GSP. And while we are glad that the MTs on groundwater levels were updated, the anticipated projected impacts to domesticated and municipal wells leave us with no confidence that drinking water will be protected by this plan, and do not believe that the revisions made do enough to protect drinking water. Additionally, there was a lack of public engagement on the revisions. Residents with impacted domestic and municipal wells were not looped into the conversation around revisions or asked for their feedback on how they should be better protected by the GSP throughout this 6-month period. Furthermore, to our knowledge, there was no local public comment period on the GSP revisions, and the public should get the opportunity to weigh in before these revisions are submitted to DWR. If there will be no public comment period on the GSP divisions, this is a major concern and something we want to raise with DWR. And we encourage that GSA to allow the public the opportunity to comment on the revisions. Thank you.
You didn't give your county residents. Hello? Okay. Anyway, Madeline?
Hi, good morning. This is Madeline from Leadership Council. And just to clarify, Andrea is also an employee of Leadership Council working with residents in the communities of Fairmead and Lavinia. I wanted to raise my hand in part in case Andrea's microphone wasn't working, but I also want to just underscore that a 3-day public comment period to review all of the GSP revisions isn't sufficient for the GSA to get meaningful public feedback on the plan. And this is a plan that's going to impact the next 20 plus years of Madera County's groundwater future, and is going to impact the access to drinking water of residents across Madera County. So people who are being impacted deserve the opportunity to shape this plan. And I just want to underscore that we'd like to see better public engagement moving forward on how residents whose domestic wells and even municipal wells are being impacted can engage on this. And I also just want to underscore the point that if 10% of municipal wells are projected to be impacted, then I think we can anticipate a lot more domestic wells than the GSP currently is projecting could be impacted, and that's unacceptable.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Any other comments? If not, I'll close the public comment and we'll bring it back to the board. And what are we needing today?
So we need your approval for 3 documents: the revised GSP, a domestic well mitigation MOU that states we will develop an agreement with others to fund a domestic well mitigation program by 2025, and an amendment to the coordination agreement, which is the agreement that all 7 parties sign within the subbasin that emphasizes historical, current, and future water budgets and the same methodologies, which you heard described by John.
County Council, can we take that with all 3 items in one motion?
Yes, Chair, and that's exactly what checking right now, that all of those are referenced in the resolution.
Yes, and it's in the board agenda where it says we're authorized to adopt, as well as the associated documents.
I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page.
We are on the same page. And
Okay.
then also on the agenda, we have to legally list out the CEQA, any CEQA action. So that's why it's there separate, but that is just drawing from the resolution.
Okay.
Mr.
And-
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution describing the actions in item 7A.
Okay,
I'll second.
motion made and second. Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Fortress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Chairman Rogers?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
I'd like to also add, this is part of the 5-year plan. The revisions will be starting right away for the 5-year plan. So, I mean, we're going to work on the 5-year, the next 5-year plan. And this will be an ongoing process. As I mentioned earlier, this is not the unchangeable laws of the Medes and Persians where we're gonna live by this and die by it in 2040. We will go through periodic updates, changes, and revisions that are necessary to make this work.
But
So
this one's due today.
What's that?
This is due today.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is
this
due
is,
today.
this is due today, so.
Right. I'll be
uh,
coming by for those scanned copies after the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
And I will sign them.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Yeah, we really appreciate you, Stephanie. And I am confident that we're going to get an approved plan in Chowchilla and hopefully this one will fly as well. Fingers crossed. And I think our plans are very well, very good. And they need to be adopted. Okay, what's the next item? I've lost my agenda here.
8A, discussion and consideration to authorize a letter of support for AB 692 as authored by Assemblyman Jim Patterson.
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the board, Regina Garza, your county counsel here to discuss this assembly bill, which would help create CEQA exemptions for fire prone areas to ensure that the tragedy that happened with the campfire is avoided as much as possible to create communities that have more than one or multiple safe egress routes. There is a typo that would need to be corrected if this is approved by the board to send out. There's a error with the reference to AB 1154, and then second to last sentence needs to be edited to take out some bracketed language.
Thank
Here to
you.
answer any questions.
Okay. So any questions on item 8A? Any from the public? If not, I'll bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made in second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez, Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Okay, the second item.
Yes, Chair, two other items that were added by your board earlier in the morning. One is a letter of support related to an action that your board took on March 14th, 2023. So this would be a letter to the California Department of Aging, and it would further request support of the grant application made by the county's Department of Social Services. The state has a goal of preparing a master plan on aging. So the grant distribution would allow Madera County to be a leader in developing the local master plan on aging. And to note, the allocation would also support the county's commitment to the community of individuals with disabilities. And so the request is to approve this letter getting sent out in time for it to be received as the grant applications are being considered for allocation. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, is there any question regarding this proposal? Any from the public? If not, I'll bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Motion made.
Second.
Motion made in second. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras.
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Okay, third item.
Yep, Chair, members of the board, the last action item for you today is one that you also added, Regina Garza, your county counsel. And this is yesterday, Senator Caballero's office requested the board send a letter to the Honorable Governor Gavin Newsom related to a one-time $1.5 billion relief package, which seeks to correct the structural underfunding in the Medi-Cal system. This is related to California's hospital system. And this letter attempts to support the creation of a long-term stability for the state's healthcare system. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? If not, bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
Move
So
to
moved.
approve. Go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made in second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras,
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Okay, supervisors and staff reports. Supervisor McCauley.
Had an opportunity to meet with the Community Development Council out in Norfolk yesterday, actually, and they were able to provide us with a little update on the cogen biomass plant up there that I think the board had kind of asked about a couple weeks ago. And so it does look like they're very hopeful to be opened in September, which would make it the first biomass plant of its kind, I guess, in the Sierra Nevadas. So although it's taken, I think, 11 years to get to this point, still first in line. So great to hear. And then on top of that, I know the county partnered with CDC on rehabbing that land at the old mill site. So they've actually gone through, they've parceled it up, they've sold out off just about, I think, every single parcel that was under their ownership. And they've been able to raise something around around $400,000, which they're going to put back into the North Fork community as part of their redevelopment plan. So a lot of exciting things going on in North Fork. Happy to see that happening in a community that is in great need.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Got hit hard by the lumber closure. Thank you, Bobby. Supervisor Portress.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow I'll be traveling to the California Transportation Commission meeting in Los Angeles with MCTC staff. Usually I don't go to these meetings, the CTC meetings, but there's one item on the agenda that is that if passed, which provides the final funding for completing SR 99 between Avenue 7 and Avenue 12 in the amount of $54 million. And I'll travel to Los Angeles for $54 million for completing that. Now,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, a mobility study has to be completed up and down 99, and that's conducted by Caltrans. But between now and the start of construction, and the start of construction is not anticipated until January of 2026. But this basically helps to seal the deal. I guess I shouldn't say that we're in the state of California, but it gets us a long ways there. And I like to give a shout out right now to Leanne Eager, who's the chairperson of the CTC. As everybody knows, she's from Fresno. She has been a huge supporter and proponent for this funding. So I just, again, like to thank Leanne, as well as all other associated staff who's been part of this effort.
Right. We've been fighting for 99 for some time. And I'd like to thank you for your huge efforts for these many years. You've been very successful considering we've got part of it done. We need the rest of it done. Thank you for your fight. Appreciate it. Yeah. Rob's put a lot of effort into that and definitely paid off. I had a very good meeting with Senator Caballero's office yesterday with her staff. And I want to thank them for showing an interest in Madera County and our issues. We're keeping a close eye on some circumstances on East Side Acres regarding the San Joaquin River. And so we're really concerned about them right now. Our prayers go out for safety for that community and others with the circumstances that are happening in our community. There are going to be a lot of flooding issues over the next few months. And it's going to get, as that snow starts to melt, you're going to see all that water start to come down, and we need places to put it. I'm glad to see the recharge efforts, but let's keep going. Let's keep putting it in the ground. We can literally recharge thousands and thousands of acre feet this year if we keep doing it. Okay, colleague. Well, I attended the RHA last week. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Wamhoff, Supervisor.
Thank you. Yesterday, I met with SEMQ, stands for Southeastern Madera County United. These are just folks from the community, mainly in the ranchos, but we discussed items related to traffic safety projects in development right now. A lot of questions about traffic safety, traffic diversion, all the things that are consistent within the ranchos. I was also very disheartened to hear that due to lack of volunteers or different volunteers, Flatlanders Parade has been postponed or not going to be happening this year. And I also got word that the fireman barbecue is not going to be happening this year for same reasons. So I'm going to be working with some folks to try to salvage what we can. And if not this year, make sure that moving forward, that we bring folks within the community to make sure that these community events happen, because it's those types of things that bring the community together, and really disheartened to hear that happening now, but we're gonna go full steam ahead and try to correct that. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gonzalez.
Thank you. I will be attending the State of the County on Wednesday. Looking forward to that. Also, Thursday, I'm sorry. The next Tuesday at Madera Community College, Dolores Huerta will be a guest of the college. Happy to report that I was made aware that there was some funding issues to getting her here. And so I made a personal contribution and then reached out to the Central Valley Opportunity Center, which I'm a member of. And a lot of the ideals align. And so was able to bring CVOC in to co-sponsor that event for our students over at Madera Community College. So that's happening next Tuesday from 10 to 2 at the campus. And we'll share that information with the folks. And then I'm just letting you know now, because I will not be in the office next week. We'll be unavailable.
Yeah.
We are finally going on our honeymoon.
Yay.
And we're super excited. We've been postponing it due to my schedule, and we're just gonna do it. So but the fort is taken care of with the staff, and so I appreciate it.
Well, have
So,
a wonderful time. You've earned it.
yeah, first real vacation in
Yeah.
2.5 years,
Yeah.
or actually longer. So
Yeah. We hope you really enjoy yourself.
that's my
buddy.
report. Thank you.
Okay, CAO,
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
County Council,
No report, Chairman. Thank you.
Clerk.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned.